So how do you think Shoeless Joe is going to play tonight?
I think he and Ty Cobb are going to get in. They're going to get into it.
You mean the lawyer that was working for Trump for a while? That one?
That's the one. That guy.
Did you see one of the superintendents of I think Broward County or something? Her name is Carly Simon.
Really?
Yeah, not spelled the same. Carlee.
Nonetheless, her parents were big time fucking hippies, and they decided to do that because her parents were so vain.
Yeah.
There's a David Geffen biography or something on Netflix, I think. And Netflix is promoting the Colin Kaepernick thing. They're doing a Colin Kaepernick thing in October.
You know, there's so much back bullshit that I'm never going to catch up with. And now current stuff is becoming stuff that I can't see. So it's impossible. It's plain impossible.
It kind of almost feels like Netflix is falling behind at the moment. They haven't had a real big thing this year per se, but I'm sure they'll come up with 5 things before the end of the year that people will be dying to watch, and people still keep the subscription like I do.
Well, just remember, one of your pay-per-view wrestling things costs more than Netflix for the whole year.
Yeah, but they don't see. Peacock has just been so terrible with their WWE content. You couldn't pause or rewind live programming for the longest time on Peacock. It was stupid.
Okay.
I am ready.
I see, Dick. Never gets old. Never.
It's like these nuts. You can't beat that.
Oh, what happened to that guy?
These nuts.
What happened to that guy? Let me click on the right thing here. Okay. What do you think of my shirt color? Pretty spiffy, isn't it?
It's turquoise of some sort, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which former television or radio station that doesn't exist anymore is that?
It's from the Greensboro Jewish Festival in 2007.
I believe that was when you were sitting in the car with. I believe you and Dr. Hyman were sitting in the car as the Panthers kicked a last-second field goal to win that game.
That's a new shirt for me. It's only 14.
That's right. The Jews still around.
Brand
Fox
new.
45, not so much. Oldies 93, not so much.
Yeah. Jeez. It's the Brad and Britt cast. We're glad you're with us here. Thank you so much. Did you ever come to something in life so late you're kind of embarrassed to admit it, but it's okay because now you like it. And I'm going to tell you something. You say what you want about this. You ready? Because I think it was a Saturday night. Me and the wife were just sitting there on the couch with the dog.
Yeah.
Not a lot happening. And I go way up the dial, way up to the top of the dial on the cable clicker, and I see an old black and white movie, and the unmistakable voice of Boris Karloff. There is no one that has ever or will ever sound like, and it's not Frankenstein. It's him as a real person.
Right.
He was a little older. He had gray hair, but he was fine. And I started watching it, and I didn't realize that the commercial break comes on, and it's the Svengoolie guy.
Oh, that guy, yeah.
All right. And we started watching the movie, and of course it was kind of a lousy movie, but kind of fun, okay in its own way, because you always say, well, this was made in 1940, whatever. And okay, it's about a guy who transplants a brain into another guy, and then that guy becomes the gangster because the brain that was transplanted was that of a gangster. It's a typical movie. And Boris Karloff, of course, he does the operation. It doesn't matter. And watch the Svengoolie guy. I didn't appreciate how funny he is and
Right.
how well constructed that crap is that he's putting out there. That's about 10 levels above most radio stuff. It really, really is. It's well done. It's funny. And here, the guy's been on TV for like 100 years. He's not a kid. He's 70 years old. That guy's not a kid. He's been doing that show for 30 years. Okay?
Wasn't he highly influenced by your old pal Goulardi from the Cleveland area? Wasn't that kind of? I think
they all were.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, he's his own thing. But anyway, I'm just putting one up for the old Svengoolie guy. And you know what? I'm hooked. This weekend, I think this Saturday night, it's some Vincent Price movie. There's no way they're not going to have a great time because you know he I think he was jumping into movies before the Mystery Science guys came along. They kind of ripped him off in a way. But okay, all right, enough of that. I don't want to go any further. And I know he's been on forever, and I know people know who he is. And I can't believe you never saw him before. I get that, but I'm willing to admit it because we have done segments on this Brad and Britt cast and on the radio, shit that's really famous and popular that you'll admit that you never saw until now, or you haven't seen it yet. Like it took me forever to see Forrest Gump. Right. I don't think I saw Forrest Gump till 5 years ago. Never saw it. It just got by me. What can I do? And here's another. I have never watched The Sound of Music, nor do I want to watch The Sound of Music. I know it's a popular movie, but I don't care. I just don't care. You can't get me to see it.
I don't know. Nazis in bucolic settings and music. I mean, you've sold me already. How could you not? What could be bad about that? There's really nothing bad.
All right. So you throw something out on the floor here because I've really messed up the room right now, and it's up to you to clean this up because I went Svengoolie at the top.
Yeah, immediately. Dan Crenshaw, the representative from Texas. Now, I think he had a little bit of a health emergency a couple of months ago, regarding that eye, which I think was a war injury. I think he's okay now. So he's at a town hall talking to some of his supporters, and he gets heckled because he keeps telling him this fantasy that you guys have about the 2020 election being stolen and the bullshit in Arizona, Georgia, and you name it. It's all a fantasy, and he's getting heckled by people saying, we're gonna overturn this thing. You're gonna look stupid, and he gets killed by these people. The tweet from Allah Pundit was, "You knew I was a snake when you took me in." There is Dan Crenshaw getting hit and hit hard by the true believers that refuse to give up on the big lie, Brad.
No, he's Texas, right?
He is Texas.
He's one of the Texas congressmen.
Correct.
And he very often takes the side that's right. He would normally be annoyed. But and this is what's so ridiculous. We have to say, to his credit, he's not out there propagating garbage about Trump really won the election. Trump's going to be reinstated and all those things. And it's illustrative. I don't know whether it's interesting, but it's illustrative of why there is so much fear that runs through the gutless Republican Party in the main. Why there are so few Dan Crenshaws. I do believe, however, that even though Dan Crenshaw is speaking truth to the powerful idiots who show up at a town hall, because they show up at a town hall with a Republican congressman like him because they think they're going to get preached to, and they're the choir, right?
Right.
But I do believe that Dan Crenshaw voted to acquit Donald Trump a couple of different times in the House. So, okay, fine. He may be saying the right things in an isolated sense about what is going on right now, and maybe has found the courage to realize that if the Republican Party in the main doesn't stop this madness, we could descend into something that's unimaginable. Well, it was unimaginable until January 6th. Now we know it can happen. There's no reason to believe that they're not plotting and scheming right now. And that Trump himself isn't plotting and scheming. We've seen it. He meets with his kitchen cabinet the same group of idiots who were, Mark Meadows, when this is all over, that's the guy that's going to end up in the orange jumpsuit first. It probably won't be Trump, but it's going to be Mark Meadows because he was in on it. He was the mastermind. He was on the phone call when Trump called the Secretary of State of Georgia and find me those 11,870 votes, please. This is Mark Meadows. He's the quote unquote brains of a lot of this. But back to Dan Crenshaw. I mean, this is what they're all afraid of. They don't want to hold town hall meetings for this reason. So you credit him for that. And you credit him for not going out there and lying, or not going out there and equivocating, which is what a lot of them are doing. But
he creates the problem by feeding them bullshit 99% of the time, and the 1% of the time he calls them out. So this is partially his fault for feeding them the bullshit they love, and then they show up and he doesn't say the right things in their eyes.
Right. For instance, this guy who succeeded Bill Barr for 5 minutes after Barr quit in the middle of December, when he said, I don't think I want my name attached to this crap anymore. Too late. Too late. But this person, Jeffrey Rosen, who we now find out, and he testified, I think, in front of a Senate committee the other day for 7 hours and spilled his guts and said, Trump was on my ass. He really, really wanted me to do exactly what they were trying to do 2 years ago with the Ukrainian president. Find some crap and just announce it. Just say there's an investigation that this election was fraudulent, and we're going to let you know. And Rosen did not go there. He just refused to do it for Trump. Here's the problem, though. And I know that I'm splitting hairs here, and you got to take victories where you get them. Victory in this case being, well, since he didn't do what Trump wanted to do, we didn't have the kind of election debacle in terms of Trump succeeding in overturning the election or getting close to succeeding in overturning the election. So Rosen didn't play the game. But why didn't he talk about it when it was going on? Why did he hold it in? Why didn't he testify at the second impeachment hearing back in January? It doesn't help now. I mean, it helps for history. It helps to know. And I guess this guy's trying to have some kind of job in polite society after this. Maybe he thinks this is going to save him. But this is what you and I and tens of millions of our co-conspirators have been asking for years. What is it going to take for people to stop what they're doing, stop associating with him, and tell the truth in the moment? Not
in
like
real time.
Don't pull a fucking John Bolton,
right,
and leave and then write a book and then say, I'm not going to testify, and it'll all be in the book after it doesn't matter anymore.
The John Bolton thing is especially maddening because it was like, oh, this book is coming. Oh my God, this book is going to be so, and it was just like on and on and on. Right. That was what happened for months at a time.
No doubt about it.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah. So Madison caught, I'm sorry. I called Crenshaw Madison Cawthorn.
Well,
excuse me. Ready? We're on a podcast. I can say this. Wrong disability. Okay.
Eye guy or wheelchair? Which one? I can't. Which one was?
Brad, in my office at 10.
It's the old Jim Plunkett. Dead mom or blind mom or deaf dad, or the other way around, Jim. What is? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And Madison Cawthorn, of course, was the guy who succeeded Mark Meadows. So somehow Western North Carolina got an even dumber guy.
Yeah. Well, there's some weird symmetry there working, isn't it? There's
something. I
some
swear to God,
right,
when I was growing up in the mountains of North Carolina, we used to once in a while have a guy in the United States House of Representatives representing us who had a little sense. Who had there was a James McClure Clark. You can look that guy up. He was an East Coast elite. He was a guy who went to Princeton, and he didn't do crazy shit. And the people of Western North Carolina would go, we're going to put him back in. That happened for a little bit, as I recall, back 30 some odd years ago. Yeah. You are headlining this on your Chiron on our live cast here. The census data is trickling out, and there's some of the headlines. A rise in Hispanic and Asian population fuels U.S. growth. The census is expected to show. I believe they're showing that birth rates are down. And then, of course, one of the headlines is that a fight over political redistricting looms with control of Congress potentially hanging in the balance. Thank you, Captain Obvious, also known as the New York Times. So the census data is coming out. Is in the preliminary, is there anything that's surprising, shocking, or mind-blowing so far?
No, there's nothing shocking except that, you know, the numbers aren't a surprise. This isn't like an earnings report for a public company that, wow, nobody thought they were going to do this. Oh, they made a lot more. No, the growth of population, it moves kind of slowly. It doesn't happen quickly. So you kind of knew where this was going. And how long have we been hearing that there's a point close to, I guess, 2050 where white people will not be more than 50% of the population of this country, at which point we white people will be rounded up by all the other minorities who will band together as one against us and round us up and kill us all. Okay? I mean, I'm half joking here. I'm half joking. And here's why. Because clearly, undeniably, no matter what year, white people, if there is such a thing now as white people or black people, since last time I checked, there's a lot of what we call mixing. Okay. So pure white people, okay, Trump's base, those people, they constitute already way less than 50% of the country. But we'll play the game here and talk about the fact that right now the United States is still a majority white, or what are we, like 52, 53, whatever the hell it is, whatever. And by the way, do I count as white? Because, you know, for purposes of racism, Jews don't count as white.
Well, you do to an extent. And then there's a certain point where you don't. Historically, that's what's been the deal.
Right. When it's convenient, but when it's inconvenient, they're not white at all. Hitler didn't consider Jews white. Okay.
When there's economic uncertainty, and I'm putting that in quotation, suddenly you're not white anymore, as it turns out.
Right. But obviously, there's no substantial difference in the way things are going to be on whatever day it is in the year 2048, whatever it is, where suddenly white people, in the broadest, most ridiculous description, are 49.9999%, and every other person adds up to over 50%. It doesn't mean anything. It's not going to change anything. But the country overall, as we know, has been changing for a long time, and hey, white people, start fucking. What can I tell you? You want to stop this? Start fucking.
White people start fucking.
Yeah.
Why didn't Hitler have some sort of innocuous message like that? Why didn't he just say that? Could all of you non-Jews and non-gypsies start fucking? That'd be great. I really would appreciate it. I don't know how you say that in German. I don't know enough German to say that, but that would have been such a great message.
Here's the flaw in the whole concept. And by the way, this if you want to think about it in the most base terms,
I think we did.
This is what is driving and has been driving the Republican Party, conservatives, MAGA people, Donald Trump, for as long as you've been alive and as long as I've been alive. This fear that, quote unquote, we're not going to be in control if there are too many of them. Therefore, we're against immigration. We're against opportunity for them because that'll take away control from us. I mean, that's speaking in the broadest sense. If we start letting all them into school, if we affirmative action, all these, they're ruining our control over this. Well, what you're headed for at a certain point, this is long, probably after we're gone, I hope, you are headed for this resistance to harden beyond where it is even now. And it's pretty hard resistance at this moment among racists and folks who will not be replaced. Jews will not replace us. Blacks will not replace. I mean, that's the whole replacement theory thing. That's what it's all about. But you have to assume that every non-white person is buddies with all the other non-white people, right? So the Mexicans are buddies with the Puerto Ricans and the Chinese, and the people from the continent of Africa. They're all one monolithic group against us white people,
right?
But you have to think that way if you're a racist and you want to do everything you can to make sure that gerrymandering keeps a disproportionate number of white people in control of elected office, certainly at the congressional level. You gerrymander the shit out of the country the best you can. You keep cheating, you keep suppressing the vote among them. Okay? That's what this is all about. This is about fear. This is about fear of the future. This is about fear of the changing demography of the United States, which, by the way, has always been changing. I think what we're waiting to see when the numbers come out is, where did everybody go? Where is everybody in terms of the suburbs, cities? I mean, we already have this completely distorted political system. There's a lot of ways you can term this. You ready? Six senators, and those would be from the three biggest states, represent as much population as the bottom 60 senators. All right. That's how distorted it is. So therefore, among those 60, there's all these pissant little states, not to pick on, say, West Virginia, where that senator there, because he's the 50th vote, doesn't matter what the other 49 do.
Right.
Because the razor thin margin, because Cal Cunningham's a piece of shit fuckface, would have been 51.
I knew you'd get back to
dealt
that.
with that.
Yeah.
Sorry to get that in. Can't give that one up.
I wouldn't blame you.
So that's how I see it. I mean, this is probably going to just solidify and calcify and harden all of the things that the Republican Party has decided they're going to stand for. Remember in 2012, after Barack Obama got reelected, there was that Republican autopsy, which I believe lasted 3.6 minutes.
It did, yeah.
But in that Republican autopsy, where a black man got reelected president over whiter than white Mitt Romney. You see, there was this musical called Hair, and there was this song. Okay. Sorry. They said they're going to have to diversify the Republican Party and talk to minorities more. And again, that was said, that was spoken, that was written, that was published, and they never meant it. They didn't care about it. And remember, Donald Trump at that time was already plotting and scheming. He'd already been taken down by Seth Meyers and Barack Obama, I believe in 2011, the year before, at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And Donald Trump's plan was not to get the nomination and reach out to Americans and bring us all together. No, it was, they're coming after Whitey, and I'm your king. I'm your guy. I've got it. So here we are. Now the census of 2020 is, and by the way, can I ask one more question? I'll just step aside in a second here. Whatever happened to, about a year ago, the fact that Trump was fucking up the census? They were intentionally fucking with it. They were going to stop the count. Speaking of stopping the count early, forget the votes on election day. How about the census? Remember that?
We got more white people than brown people. Stop the count.
Right.
That's enough.
But remember, if I recall correctly here, what they were trying to do was go to court and make the case that the language in the Constitution didn't mean what it said. Because, again, I'm doing this from memory, and as you know, my memory is really stellar. I believe in the Constitution, the census says you count the number of persons in the United States. They decided that persons meant legal citizens.
Yeah, they were trying that. Yeah,
they tried that, or voters, or they wanted to shrink the idea that the census just counts everybody, and that the census is not used to find out who you are, where you are, and what your status is, so they can come arrest you. Republicans didn't like that. They tried that, and I believe the courts said no to that, but it did slow down the process, and they were forced to stop the count sooner than they wanted to. Isn't that right?
That's what happened.
So here we are, what, a year later, and now does that just go by the board? Do we forget about that and just take the census as gospel? I guess this is one of these things. Well, we have to. We don't have a choice. There isn't going to be a recount. There isn't going to be. Okay, so it is. It is.
A couple of things about that 2012 autopsy. It came after there was great success in the Republican Party in 2010. That was the Tea Party midterms, where the Democratic Party got slaughtered. Yeah. And of course, for those efforts, the guy that was in head of the Republican National Committee, what happened to him, Brad, for captaining that huge victory in 2010?
Oh, well, what happened to him is he immediately was hired by MSNBC to be a commentator forever. Michael Steele.
Michael Steele, he was fired by the RNC. This great guy named Reince Priebus then took the helm and then piloted the 2012. He was part of the 2012 effort that saw the Republican Party go down in flames, and he was part of that study that was authored that said, I guess we're going to have to go and reach out to people other than white folks. And as you point out, that was immediately discarded. Fuck that. Continue to go ahead and with the Obama wasn't born in America. It's a fake birth certificate shit, which they did for the remaining 4 years until Donald Trump could make his ascendancy. And here we are. That was part of what happened in 2012. Yeah. Part of again, among these very scared white people who are afraid that white folks are not going to be in the majority in America is oh my God, once these people take over, they're going to start punishing us. Well, how about not treating them like shit? How about not doing that? Well, and then perhaps when they are in quote unquote power, they might be, I don't know, Britt, nicer to you. How about that?
I have some news for those people who are worried.
Yes.
Again, white people still generally control this country at 51 or 52% of the total population. Just because there's no thing there's no curtain that's gonna come down the day it shifts under 50% and say, all right, everybody in the Fortune 500, the 492 white people who run Fortune 5, you're all fired, and they're all going to replace by black people, which, by the way, that sounds like a great screenplay, though. There's a screenplay in that. And I don't know how to write a screenplay. I don't know how you would do it, but there's something there.
I think that
and it could be a comedy. It could be
there's a fair amount of these folks that have this sort of anxiety, and I don't know what you call it. Economic anxiety was what we called it, what we phrased it a few years ago, and it's not just that; it's just pure racism. Some of these people have been taught that once some black folks were given some political power in South Africa, white people were driven into the streets and then slaughtered. I mean, that's what some of them actually
believe. You don't want to use South Africa as a model.
I think it's been overstated in their narrative. I believe in their narrative.
Well, I don't know if you ask white South Africans who say live in this country, they wouldn't go back there now.
No,
not even for racial reasons. But if you think, but you can use South Africa for the idea that you can have a very small minority of white people, because remember, it wasn't like 49.98% white people in South Africa. I mean, I don't know what the whites were very small, and they ruled the country with an iron fist for all those decades when it was an apartheid society. So the charge will be and is at a certain level that if white folks still control everything, and they become part of a shrinking minority of the whole, then what kind of country do we have? What's going on? I mean, that's going to come up. I don't think it's going to come up for us in our lifetimes here substantially, but it's a growing thing. It's a growing thing. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you. And I should have done this instead of the Svengoolie thing. Okay, the Svengoolie thing was just a disaster. And if you're still with us here, and we thank you, you know that I just erred horribly by talking about Svengoolie at the beginning of the podcast. But 10 minutes before we started, and normally if the phone rings, then I never pick it up. But it had that famous caller ID of RNC.
Oh, you love these, yeah.
Right. So I know they always call and they do these one question polls. And then you give some kind of smart aleck answer or something like that, and that's the end of the call. So today, and I almost was able to record the call, but I couldn't get it together quickly enough because it's kind of tough to do that in the middle of this. But this guy says we have a question. This is the Republican National Committee in Washington D.C. Copyright blah, 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 and here it is. And it was a long question, and I'll summarize it very much. Are you concerned that the Democratic Party has been defunding the police, thus driving up crime rates and making America a less safe country for everyone? I mean, it was this long thing that, of course, the premise was that the official Democratic position across the country, everywhere, is to defund the police. That was correct, the question. Yeah. So I said to the guy, I said, well, you know what? I'm going to have to really think about that. Usually that's the end of the call, right?
Yeah, usually.
Not this time.
No.
Not this time. This guy stuck to the script, and he immediately went into the fundraising portion of the phone call. How much money are you willing to give to the Republican Party to stop this destruction of America, the defunding of the police, the running up of the, he went on and on and on and on. And of course, finally, that was it. The call was over. But first I said to the guy, I'd like to give $5 million. I said $5 million. And the great thing about these they're not robocalls. This was a live person because I asked him. I'm a live person, but I have computer assist, whatever that means. I said, I'd like to give $5 million. And you would think that would be the end of it. Okay. That doesn't, they keep going. And Jesus. Finally I said, I got to go. So when I was done, I thought, you know what? As idiotic a experience as that was for me, that was a very, very effective push polling phone call,
right?
That came through. Okay. Because of course it crystallized and distorted the idea that, as you know, the Democrats are standing up every which way but sideways, including that speech the other day, that total takedown by Cory Booker on the floor of the United States Senate about defund the police. And the Democrats can't joke their way out of it. They can't roll their eyes out of it. They can't go, you don't really think that, do you? Yes. Oh, yes, they do. And that phone call that I just got, that polling call, lets you know what their core argument is going to be. There's no question about it. It is, you've got to put us back in power. That was the language that this guy used, so that the Republicans can get back in power and reverse all of these outrages concerning the defunding of the police being done by the Democrats all over the country. That's what they're saying. That's what they're telling their voters. They're trying to motivate them to get out there to stop this.
Well, this has been, I mean, and President Biden has talked about this, about how this is going to be shoved up the Democrats' ass for ad infinitum, right? From here on out, that's all you got to say if you're a Republican, is that these people are trying to defund the police. And if you try to explain otherwise, it doesn't matter, because if you're explaining, you're losing. It became a cry. It became associated with Democrats. Certain Democrats like AOC and some others are embracing it, and it's toxic to the party.
Okay, all right, but you just said it. You said it right. So if you're explaining, you're losing.
Exactly.
So what's the answer? Okay, so you don't say anything. If you don't answer back,
No,
you
you
lose.
have
If you're
to say
explaining,
something.
you're losing. So
Yeah.
so what do you do? How do you?
Well, you do what Cory Booker did.
This is the big question. How do you fight off every lie about everything that comes from all directions? And this is in the top 3 of most pernicious that Democrats are going to be talking about because they have to defend themselves. And that's got to be what they're talking about, not just, well, we got $2,000 checks put into your bank account back in the spring of 2021. What about that? What about that child credit that you're getting?
Yeah.
You know what?
People not getting kicked out of their houses and their apartments. What about that? What about the economy rebuilding? What about getting vaccinations into people's arms? None of that's going to matter. You're absolutely right.
It's not going to matter. It is.
Right.
It is absolutely not going to matter. And
I agree.
It's a tough thing for the Democrats to overcome, and I'm not sure that they can. I don't know that they can. We shall see. All right.
Speaking of Republicans,
here?
Well, this is I thought an interesting piece from the Boston Globe. In Florida, it says we are witnessing the biggest high-stakes political gamble in American politics since the Iraq War. And DeSantis is gambling that what he's doing right, and in not masking up and fighting all of this stuff from the federal. In fact, I think hasn't he like refused to touch the ventilators that Biden has sent in Florida? Isn't that like a thing that DeSantis is doing now?
What you mean when you say he refuses to touch them? What does that mean?
Like he won't go pick them up and use them is what I've heard. Is that the president, the federal government has sent ventilators to Florida, and I think they're like, no, you can't. We're not going to use those. Fuck you, Joe Biden.
So he's into full bore, nonstop, beyond shameless lying.
Yeah.
Because apparently there were people in his government who requested them from the federal government the way it's supposed to work. And fortunately, there are ventilators to be able to be moved to places that need them now, which is a lot better than it was a year and a half ago.
There's the CNN headline.
Right.
I'm not aware. I don't know anything about this. I have no idea.
Right. That is DeSantis's version of any senator saying, when confronted with what Trump said or what Trump did, I don't even know about it. I didn't see it. I haven't heard about it. I didn't see the video. This is DeSantis. And again, why? That's what is so puzzling about this. What gain do you think you're going to get by denying knowledge of life-saving equipment arriving in your state? Is DeSantis going to say, I'll only take ventilators if they come from Texas, Louisiana, Tennessee,
Mar-a-Lago,
members of the Southeastern Conference? I'll take Southeastern Conference ventilators only. But if they're liberal East Coast elitist Northeast Washington ventilators, I don't want them. I don't want them. Don't want them.
I'm sure Mississippi has a ton of ventilators to send his way. I'm almost positive they do.
Right. So all the states that I just named need ventilators probably worse or equal to Florida. And by the way, if the article is correct, how did that Iraq war work out as a political gamble? Well, that was a winner.
Not so great. But hey, Bush got reelected, so I don't know.
You know what? Would you like to know the difference between that and this?
Yeah.
The Iraq war was a war over there.
That's correct. That's correct.
In Florida, people are dying in Florida.
Over here.
Right now.
Yeah. In
real
time.
So I guess the crass, horrible political calculation by DeSantis is at some point over the next few months, the Delta virus version of the coronavirus is going to start to recede, and it will not matter how many people died. It will not matter how many people were in the hospital. It will not matter what went on. He will declare victory, right? Isn't that the plan that
Well,
his leadership got Florida through? No one else could have done this, right? Isn't that
this
what
is how the Boston Globe puts it? Should Florida emerge with a solid economy and coronavirus deaths roughly in line with the national average, DeSantis will benefit politically more than any other Republican in the country. In a Republican presidential field that would include as many as 24 candidates, starting ahead of the field matters. Now, I would stop to point out he's building that advantage on the backs of dead people. But again, I hate to just throw cold water on all of this. He doesn't care. They go into what you were talking about. Obviously, the Iraq approach backfired. America did not have an exit strategy in Iraq. Democracy did not come to the region, and many people were killed in the fighting and resulting instability. Bush left office deeply unpopular and with Democrats controlling all of Washington. Back in Florida, here's the thing. The easiest thing for DeSantis to do was to leave questions about mask mandates up to the local school districts. He would even criticize decisions he didn't agree with, but he didn't do that. And in doing so, he is owning whatever comes with this heavy-handed approach. Again, Republicans love local control until they don't love local control, Brad.
Right. And by the way, that's what Roy Cooper is doing in North Carolina. He did not issue a statewide mask mandate, but all over the state localities, including the one we're at, are reinstituting them. And I'm not just talking about in schools. I'm talking about out in public again. Because at the gym on Wednesday, I asked them, and they said, "Oh yeah, starting Friday, masking up again when you come in there." Oh yeah, any indoor gather, you're going to have to do it.
Interesting.
And of course, I immediately made a speech about freedom.
Curse them out and then break something and left?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. So,
and that's how you should handle it.
Yeah.
This is the last piece, and I just want to know if this means anything. A Fox News poll finds that Americans approve. This is a Fox News poll that Americans approve of the Biden $3.5 trillion budget by nearly 20 points. Now, for a number of reasons, that I know this doesn't matter because nobody really understands. People who were working on that budget don't really understand what's in that budget. And you can't expect people who are taking a Fox News poll to understand. But I still find it pretty interesting that, oh my God, he's spending all this money and it doesn't seem to be making a dent among the American people per se. Maybe.
Well, a poll like that clearly is, do you like the idea of this? And okay, but again, the American people are not the United States Congress or the United States Senate. We know that. They're supposedly representing us, but I think it's fair to say they very often more largely represent themselves and their own interests and their own political futures. And to watch certain people decide suddenly that this is completely out of control spending that's just going to destroy the country and if you dare go into the whataboutism category and say, okay, so it was okay to have a couple $1 trillion worth of worthless tax cuts for corporations and upper income people and not pay for them under Trump. And it didn't do anything for the damn economy, really. There's no evidence of that. That was okay, but this is the end of the world because this is going to help poor people. This is going to help middle class people.
Right.
This is going to help everybody in the country because rich people and poor people drive on roads.
They do.
Rich people and poor people need someone to look after their kids. Rich people can afford it, but poor people can't. And all the other things that are associated with this. And the other thing, and I think the Democrats have lost a huge opportunity here if they don't jump on the complete knee-jerk fuck you reaction that has been thrown at the 3.5. All this, it's the Green New Deal. Green New Deal. They managed to turn the words Green New Deal into poison, shit.
Yeah.
It's the idea that And if you just analyze what would the New Deal was a way of dealing with a horrible crisis in the 1930s to mobilize the country through different federal programs and change the way tax dollars were being used to keep America from sliding off the edge of the earth and saving capitalism in the 1930s, because it was open for debate then that it wasn't working. Our way was not working in the Depression. Roosevelt did that. So that was the New Deal. So now you have to completely ignore the fact that the climate is changing a lot faster than we thought.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was always 12 years from now, if we haven't done anything, then blah, blah. Well, okay, now it isn't 12 years from when that was said a couple years ago. And the weather right now, and this is to now put an end to the cliche, well, weather is what happens in the next 2 days. Climate is about the broad. No, guess what? The weather at this moment is being affected by the climate. Okay. They have merged. And don't worry, if we get whacked with a couple of giant hurricanes again, the subject will come up. But this is going by the boards, and part of they're just doing this is the way they get the Green New Deal in there. And I know there's 100 different cross currents on special interests and things of that sort that are I understand that. You know, I guess what's probably going to happen here, and so far Joe Biden and Pelosi and Schumer have been pretty damn skilled in doing what they want to do. This is even a bigger enchilada enchilada is a racist thing. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It may not be 3.5 trillion. It may be 2 trillion. It may be half. It may be 1.75. Whatever the number is, that will still be a remarkable achievement. It'll still be way bigger than what was spent after 2008 into Obama's term to help keep the economy from dying then. But I think they need to speak like real people. They need to speak and say, you know what, if you owned a house and you did no maintenance or repairs on it for 40 years, what would your house look like?
Right.
It'd be in trouble.
Right.
Well, that's what our house looks like. Our roads look like that. Our railroads look like that. Our rivers and streams and highways and airport, they haven't been fixed up for 40 years. The house is a mess, and we need to do a lot of rehab. And this is, I don't know why they can't speak that way instead of using the I word, infrastructure, which means nothing. Okay. You know, infrastructure is in people, it's their intestines. That's your infrastructure.
Right.
Okay? Who wants to talk about their intestines? Nobody. I just want to talk about the food that I eat that goes through the intestines. There's a cooking section in your local paper. There is no human infrastructure, i.e. intestines section in your paper, because it doesn't work. It's not interesting. Nobody
wants
cares.
that.
So that's my show. I don't know whether they're going to get it together or not. I don't know. Hopefully they will. And did you see the mayor of Topeka? Did you see this story? She got the COVID.
Wow.
She's a Democrat. She got the COVID and she got it really, really bad. She's now had to get a pacemaker. And she's only 45 years old.
Wow.
45 years old. She picked it up. So that's the bad news. The worst news is that she's not a Republican, and so she wasn't really against vaccines. I mean, she got it. She got it before there was a vaccine. So,
and she's now a long hauler. That's what she is. For the rest of her life.
That's what she is. So, again, not a high profile enough person. You know, we need Lindsey Graham to not just get it and then give credit to the vaccine and pretend he isn't in the tank for Donald Trump and every other lie associated with Trump, and thinking that this somehow absolves him because he was vaccinated and lives through it the way you're supposed to. That doesn't absolve him. We need him to get really, really sick. We need him to be on his deathbed. We need
Put
it.
him
We
on a
do need
vent.
it. Yeah. The vent. You don't want to end up on the vent. Don't want to end up on the vent.
From
All
one of
right.
the SEC schools, or I want an SEC vent.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is
Well,
the-
you remember you got those 3 talk show hosts, SEC talk show hosts.
That's
You got
true.
Phil Valentine. You
Yeah.
got the guy in South Florida, and then you got the guy in Daytona Beach. They're all
Mark
they're
Bernier,
all,
Mark Bernier, whatever that guy is.
right. Two of them are fighting for their lives, and one of them's already lost them. And that's what happens in when you try to live the gimmick, right? Live in the
That's
gimmick.
right.
I'm against vaccines.
In the Southeastern
let them-
Conference.
The SEC. The SEC. All right. We're it. We're it.
See
You're
you-
it. I'm it.
We'll see you
Monday.
next week, guys.